Turning now to markets, we're taking a look at U.S. futures just about 20 minutes ahead of today's opening bell. As the Dow, the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq, you see them there on your screen. The Dow, the lone gainer as of right now, barely to the upside here. The Dow Jones Industrial Average and the index trades with a new member, we should note, Nvidia, the AI chip giant replacing Intel on that industrial average, whose shares have fallen nearly 48% this year. That company has been a member of the gauge since 1999. Joining us to discuss what this means for the major average, we've got Callie Cox, who's Ritholtz Wealth Management Chief Market Strategist. Callie, great to see you. Good to have you on here this morning. So the significance of this replacement for Nvidia largely, and then, Sherwin-Williams, I imagine that they're throwing a little bit of a cake party at their offices today, too.
Right. And, a lot of us on Wall Street talk about the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq, but really most of America knows the Dow. So a lot of America is going to be introduced, or at least have to get a little bit more familiar with Nvidia and, all of what Nvidia means in this AI story. Brad, I think the most interesting thing to me is that the Dow, I'm not sure most people know this, but it's not market cap weighted. So Nvidia is a huge, huge stock by market cap. But if you look at its share price, it's still around 150 or so. So it's not going to have as big of an impact on the Dow as it is on the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. And I think that's going to throw a lot of people off. You're going to see some interesting gaps between the Dow and the S&P 500 on days when Nvidia is maybe rising a lot or falling a lot. So from a nerd's point of view, I think that's really interesting, but that's going to matriculate itself into, how America really sees markets and how they respond to some of the biggest, stories in the world right now.
So, Callie, it sounds like that is a great point, right? Just in terms of its influence and how that compares, a lack thereof, I guess, influence, and how it compares to the other major averages. I'm curious, and just in terms of maybe brand exposure, popularity, what this is going to do for some of the ETF funds going forward, just in terms of retail investor activity within this name. How do you think that kind of, does it at all really influence the AI exposure and the dominance that we could then likely see here for quarters to come?
I think that's an interesting point, Shauna. And my first thought goes to the fact that not many ETFs are based off of the Dow. Not many managers are benchmarking to the Dow anymore. Everybody knows the Dow, but in reality, the Dow is becoming less and less relevant on Wall Street. So I think that that's less of an impact that we'll see. I really just think it's a brand thing for Nvidia. Nvidia being able to say that they're part of one of the most storied indexes on Wall Street, even if that storied index is less powerful these days.
And so all of these things considered, how will the investor out there that perhaps holds the Dow or plays the indexes most prominently within their portfolio, is there any specific or material change from this point forward and the weighting that we've seen, especially as more tech companies over the past few years are the ones that are really called into favor to get some of and vie for some of those positions within the Dow 30?
I think, first of all, I'm going to have a frank conversation with my grandma about what Nvidia is. But seriously, I think it goes back to the gaps that we're going to see, right? Nvidia is a huge market mover. We've seen that over the past 2 years. It likely will be for a while because it is at the forefront of the AI conversation. But you're not going to see those impacts in the Dow. So investors need to be really careful about what they're watching. And look, I don't think many investors, again, are exposed to the Dow in a way. There aren't many ETFs that are, connected to the Dow that track the Dow, and Wall Street managers aren't benchmarked to the Dow, even though we hear about it a lot. So be careful with the indexes you watch, but I'm not sure that this is going to have much of an effect on how you invest.
Or so just a reputation boost here for Nvidia. Callie, while we have you, certainly it was a record-setting week for the markets. We saw a lot of euphoria play out following the victory here for President-elect Trump. I'm curious, just in terms of the degree or the magnitude of the gains that we have seen, is there a biggest risk, or what, in your view, is a risk here for the markets that they should keep in mind under a second Trump term?
Well, I want to be clear about this, and it's been so hard to sort through facts, feelings, and emotions this week fact, fiction, and emotions this week, as I'm sure you guys have felt. But the first thing that we're telling our clients right now when they come to us asking us about the election results is that Politics are a distraction for your portfolio. Many of the clients we serve are investing for years and decades ahead. And, no matter who's in the Oval Office, the stock market's strongest, most common thread is the economy and earnings. Um, policy matters. We could see some changes in policy. I think it's way too soon to make guesses on what policy could actually become law and what policy is just a talking point. So we're also reminding our clients of that too. And clearly, markets think that every policy that's been thrown out there is in play right now. I don't think that's the case. It never is. But right now, when we're thinking about risks, we think the highest risk we could see is possibly a resurgence in inflation. But clearly, it's too soon to tell. We don't know which party is going to control the House. We don't know how easy it will be to pass policy. So we're telling people to, pump the brakes here, prepare for a little bit of up and down as markets work through this speculation, and to really start watching in January and, maybe most closely when we know which party will control the House.
All right, Callie Cox, Ritholtz Wealth Management, Chief of Market Strategist. Thanks so much for taking the time to hop on with us this morning.